TGIF and welcome back, freelancers. If you're new here, my name is Michael Hernandez and this is Freelance Friday, where I like to share everything that I've learned and continue to learn as a freelance classical musician in the 21st century. Today we're discussing what it means to be a working musician amid the current coronavirus pandemic. I'll be telling you guys how I've been able to keep working, stay busy, and make money as a classical saxophonist, all while staying at home and sheltering in place. The best thing is I haven't spent any money on gas.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Get your coffee, grab a notebook, and let's go. So the world is going through something really crazy right now. This global pandemic kind of came out of nowhere. For us musicians, the idea of getting back onto the concert stage and filling up those concert halls, that's a ways off. Even for us educators, we don't know what the fall will even look like. And I think that needs to be a wake-up call for all freelance musicians. Some of you may have got your stimulus check. Some are still waiting. If you have gotten it, you probably have already spent it.
This clown dog shit's gone, man.
The sooner that we can realize that the world will no longer be the same for us and we have to adapt, I think the better off we all will be. So these are just some of my suggestions, what I've been able to do the past 9 weeks, and I hope you find them useful. When this started at the beginning of March, I had just come back from a trip with my studio at San Jose State. We went to the North American Saxophone Alliance Conference. We are very lucky to make the trip possible because while we were over there and for this conference, the kids had several other concert tours with the university, such as CBDNA and other things that were coming up in a few weeks, and they were all being canceled while we were on tour. And we were still, we flew there, we still had to fly back, and we basically got out like 2 days before San Jose State kind of froze all of their school travel. At the time, we were like, oh, we're so lucky. But now looking back, that's very scary because I had all of my students at a big conference in Arizona with, I think over 1,000 people in concert halls and cramped spaces and a lot of saxophone playing. It was a wonderful experience for them, and I'm glad we got to do it. But we came back and things were definitely different. Classes were canceled for that week. And I immediately told my students that work to live here and to go to school, that they should start filing for unemployment because I sensed something was going to happen within the next few weeks. And sure enough, 4 days later, we were on lockdown. At first when school was canceled, I thought, oh, this is kind of good. I just got back from this trip. And I always stack my March and Aprils. And if you want to learn about stacking your spring for your summer so that you can survive in the summer as a freelance musician, please type a TGIF stack in the comments below and I'll make a video about that. But I always have my April pretty stacked. I was supposed to premiere 32 pieces, world premiere 32 pieces in the month of April. I'm pretty sure that's more than the amount of days that are in the month. I had 5 university residencies. I had 2 orchestral gigs, and you know how hard I work to get those orchestra gigs. And a handful, not more than a handful, I had several chamber concerts with both my quartet, the monoquartet, and with my trio keyed contraptions. And that first week I thought, this is great, because I have 32 premieres, but I had 60 pieces that I had to practice and kind of learn. So I thought, okay, I can get a head start. It didn't dawn on me that this was bigger than a university problem. Things are really starting to happen. Day 3, I'm like, okay, I can practice. I start getting phone calls about gigs being canceled. New York was canceled, New Jersey was canceled. I thought, what's going on? This is crazy. And by the end of the week, I could not take another phone call without freaking out.
I need help! Dickhead!
Because everything was getting canceled. And then we went on lockdown and it started to set in. Oh wait, this isn't something minor. This is a big deal. All of that work that I had spent all last season booking for this stacked April and March and May were gone. And we were holding out until, mid-April, maybe this will happen. No, everything is canceled. So as I mentioned in an earlier video, I had put my saxophone down for a couple weeks because I was just in shock. And some of my colleagues were able to just keep going and playing and practicing and posting like nothing had happened. And I've only read of one other colleague that kind of took it like me. I was in shock. And now looking back, I think I was like in mourning. I was going through those stages of grief. I was angry. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how anything was going to happen as a freelance musician who depends on, gigs and concerts. So after realizing that this was real and it was happening and nobody was going to fix it except for me, I started thinking creatively, and I realized it's no different. Freelance musicians are used to these kind of tough spots, whether it's moving to a new city and not having anything, or summer comes and all gigs are gone unless you planned ahead. There's no schools, there's no concerts usually going on in the summer. A lot of major orchestras take breaks in the summer, so summers are always a scary time. And when you're just starting out, it literally feels like the pandemic when all of a sudden it's June and you're like, whoa, what? There's no more work. So I started thinking, okay, what would I tell my students? And the first thing I tell them when they get to a city, is to book concerts, make friends, look into churches, look into retirement centers, look into schools, start a private studio, hit up all of the local schools. So I said, there's something there. That blueprint is a good blueprint. And how do I modify that for what's happening now when I'm supposed to stay in my apartment or my studio? So, okay, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. I hope I get that stimulus check. I do want to give a shout out to Nick Norton, who lives in Los Angeles. He is the artistic director of Equal Sound, and we don't really know each other. But I saw a post of his still those few days that I was back in California between that tour with my kids and the lockdown started. I saw a post that he made on Instagram, and literally overnight, he took his Equal Sound project, and I think I have this story right. Literally overnight at 3 a.m. he posted he started a musicians relief fund, and the applications were open if you could show that you were out of work. And I just found out, I just got word that I do have a check coming from them this weekend. And, it's been 10 weeks, and he was able to do all of this from what I understand, from no experience and no background, just to kind of start this huge thing, and he's able to help these musicians out, and I think that is just amazing. His CD, his first full-length album, comes out tonight at midnight, so by the time you guys watch this, you should look him up, nicknorton.bandcamp.com. Great musician and a wonderful person. Again, we haven't met, but I really thank you, Nick, for that. So when I saw that fund come up, I thought, oh wow, so things are happening and this is real, and we have to figure it out. I immediately looked at my calendar. I have one of those giant desk calendars. And I started going through the calendar to see if there was anything that I could salvage, or if maybe accommodations could be made, with those concerts. So I mentioned earlier I had 5 residencies at 5 different universities. One just got canceled, even though we had a contract, and it's hoped that it will be rescheduled. Another one did get rescheduled. Another one allowed us to record our work and do it over the internet, like send in recordings of what we were supposed to do, and it was supposed to be workshopping with student composers, and they allowed us to still submit, instead of going there and performing, to kind of do it via recordings. Allowed us to do the same thing and finish next semester or at some point in the next year, and still paid us, which is really great of them. They still kept that gig for us. Another one allowed us to also do the same thing with recordings, and we still got paid for that, what we were supposed to. So it ended up not being so scary with those residencies. And then another one did get pushed back, hopefully. So two have been rescheduled. The orchestral gigs, I don't know. I spoke to the conductors and said, look, but everybody's freaking out. As far as the orchestra gigs, we don't even know if there will be orchestras next year. A number of the chamber concerts got moved and rescheduled, so that was good. My recommendation is to first look at what you have and what has been canceled or what might be canceled, like things coming up in the summer still. I'm sure that you guys have gigs planned all year, right? So start addressing those and see if you can modify them in any way so that you can still get paid, right? And I'm sure you have a contract with them, so they are obligated. You guys should try to work something out. The next thing I want to talk about is the idea of either pre-recorded or streaming concerts. So this summer, I had a few concerts that were supposed to take place on a chamber series that is presented at an assisted living community. What you might not realize is that all of those assisted living centers, they have a budget that's allocated for outside entertainment. And this one in particular is a really nice series. And they have a nice concert hall on the premise. And I've played there like 4 times already. And what I notice is that they get a good turnout, but because some of the residents stay in their rooms, but those concerts, they have it set up so that they can live stream. And they live stream to every single room on the premise. Whenever you give a concert there might be like 50, 60 people in the audience, but you're actually playing for hundreds of people that really want to hear and need to hear that music. So I called them because I was already supposed to play twice with them in July. And I said, look, they are definitely not wanting to have anybody, right? Because they are in that demographic that they're really sensitive to this COVID-19. And I said, look, I know that you have the capability to stream, so what if we just go and play the concert to an empty room? We'll wear masks, getting to the concert hall, and then you can disinfect after we leave. They loved that idea. They were so, they had to cancel their other concerts that were happening. And when I brought that up, nobody had thought of that. And they're like, sure, that would be great. So that was another gig that I was able to modify and still have on the books. Another senior center we were supposed to play at, they aren't really set up for that, like with the concert hall that live streams. Their chamber series isn't that big. Contacted them and I said, look, I know I'm doing something over here and this is what we've come, we've made arrangements to do it streaming. Would you consider that? They hadn't thought of that. They had canceled a lot of their performances and, the seniors were really upset because when you live in a place like that, there's so little to look forward to. Those performances do mean a lot to them and it's a powerful audience to play for and a very appreciative audience to play for. So I mentioned, look, is there any way that we could stream it or record a concert and then, basically sell you the video, sell you the video. And they loved that idea. Which got me thinking, well, if you'll buy this concert video, who else will buy this concert video? So you could kind of take it from there. And then instead of selling your group or yourself, maybe you're just selling a video of you playing a concert. It's basically a recording of yourself, right? It's like not rocket science. And then I offered the option of just streaming and giving them the link. So basically, at that point, I had dealt with everything that was in the immediate future, everything that was supposed to be in March, April, and May and June. And I thought, okay, I feel good about that. I lost a few, but I was able to salvage a few. And had I just continued staying on the couch, really depressed or whatever, not playing, I wouldn't have salvaged any of them, and it would be a very bad situation. So that gave me motivation. I was like, okay, Hernandez, you got this. This is what I do. This is what we do, right? So I was like, okay, what else can I do? So I thought, okay, well, what about Groupmuse? For those of you that don't know, Groupmuse is amazing. I've been playing Groupmuse concerts for 5 or 6 years now. At first, you could only do them in New York and San Francisco. And now you can basically do them anywhere. Well, actually now, literally, you can do them anywhere because of the pandemic. They've set up streaming Groupmuse concerts. So traditionally, if you don't know what Groupmuse is, I think you should go look it up right now. I'll put a link down below. Don't worry, I'm going to put a lot of links down below, including to Nick Norton's new album and just all sorts of links. So look out for those. And I won't be making any money off of these. These are just my friends and people that I want to help you guys. So things like Groupmuse, I'll put a link if you're not familiar with that so that you can become familiar with that. Because traditionally, Groupmuse is like Tinder for musicians. You have somebody that's wanting to host a concert, a chamber music concert in their living room, and you have musicians that want to be hired. And basically, you're swiping and you connect, right? And Groupmuse is the app that you connect through. And you can go online and you can see what places are in need of musicians in your area. And likewise, I think that those hosts have the option of like looking through and seeing who's willing to play in their area. So it's something that we do in the quartet a lot. It's something I've done in my trio a lot, my other trio. And it's something I do as a soloist a lot too. And it's a great way to supplement. Like if you're on tour in a new city and maybe you only have a few concerts, it's great if you have a free night just to get on and do a Groupmuse, because they can get pretty full. You know, it depends on how big the person's house is, and everyone's encouraged to spend at least $10 for the artist. And usually they spend a lot more. And everyone brings wine, and you know, it's kind of BYOB, and they bring food, and you play for like 20 minutes. Then you have an intermission where you talk to the guest and have a little drink and a little food, and then these people are opening their houses up to strangers, and it's really amazing. And nobody knows each other, so it's a great way to get to know people. And then you play another 20 minute set, then you socialize more. So it's quite fun. And actually, if you are on a tour, it's a great way to expand your mailing list and to get more people to go to the big events that you're presenting in their city. So I thought, well, what the hell is Groupmuse doing now? Because, I mean, everybody's up shit's creek. And that's something, too. Everyone is affected by this. So all I had to do was go up to those senior centers and be like, hey, have you thought about this? And everyone is open. Everyone is willing and open to a new idea, because we have to start thinking in a new way. It just takes a little bit of initiative. So I thought, well, what is Groupmuse doing? Because they're in a similar situation. They rely on these concerts too. Sure enough, they're like all set up for live stream, and now you can do it anywhere. You can do like a double header. You can do 2 concerts, 3 concerts in a night, because it's all from your living room to somebody else's like living room. And they might, you know, they can't have people over, so it's just like whoever has the link, and there's like so many spots, you know, and that's another great way. And you still get paid for all of those people that are paying the suggested donation or more, right? Groupmuse is still a valid way to work as a freelance musician. FYI, if you haven't looked into it. Now, it doesn't have to even be in your city, because literally it's everywhere. For me, this whole experience has been really similar to when I was first starting out and kind of like dropped into a new city and have to like figure everything out, and like I've mentioned before, start from scratch. So I thought, well, what else do I usually tell my students to do? Well, I always tell them to hit up churches. Usually all of us are friends with people that are music directors at churches. And usually they're like pianists or vocal majors, right? That we went to school with. And their side hustle, or one of their side hustles is, or maybe their full-time job, I'm not trying to diminish anything, is to be a music director at a church. So like I know when I was in Phoenix, I had like several friends that were music directors at different churches. So I was playing the church scene a lot. And even here in the Bay Area, I had a good friend that was a music director at a church, and I played there pretty frequently, and then I got my students to play there. And churches have quite a big budget for bringing in talent. Nobody told me that you could do that, and maybe I'm telling you something you don't know when you think of playing a church service, but you can really make a whole event out of it. So typically, I played at many Baptist churches, a lot of Lutheran churches, Unitarian churches, Catholic churches, Episcopalian. Usually it helps if you have an in, but I've also played at churches that I didn't have an in. That I didn't have an in. So if you approach that music director, it does help if they're your friend. Be like, look, let me play a service. I'll do prelude, which is like when people are coming in. I'll do something during the offering or communion or whatever that denomination calls that, where they get the bread and the wine. And then I'll play a featured solo, and it's all with piano, right? I'll play like a featured solo, and then I'll play postlude. And depending on, some churches really love music. Unitarian churches, it's basically a concert. So it's basically music the entire time. Now, whether that's from the church choir or you, or the larger churches that have like the big TVs and they're already streaming, you're not going to have much luck there, because they have like a music program there. I mean, they don't need you. That's okay, because a lot of these smaller churches, Baptist churches, Unitarian, Lutheran, Catholic, they have like a volunteer here or there in their choir, but they usually have a full-time pianist or organist. So that's who you would be collaborating with. And usually that person could be your friend because they are the music director, right? As long as you hit up that music director and just tell them what you're thinking, they will usually find additional works for you to play in. whether it's with some of the hymns that they sing or even just with the choir. So I've done a number of pieces with choir, usually at churches, and those are really fun too. And it's just a great way to spend your Sunday morning, get your good check, and you go have brunch with your music director friend, have some mimosas afterwards. So I was thinking, surely there has to be a way that this can be modified. So I called one of my music director friends and I ran it by her. Sure, because even churches are on lockdown. They are open to streaming also. You just have to ask. Now, since you won't have the rehearsal with the pianist, who is this music director / your friend or whatever, I recommend recording your solo part and sending them the score so then they can practice it with you so that they can take your tempos on the rubato, then they record that, and then you can put it together on something like the acapella app. Option A. Option B, you just record some solo stuff. I have a ton of solo rep if you want to scroll through this YouTube channel. I have a whole project called Monologues for soprano saxophone where I have commissioned a lot of my friends to write solo pieces for soprano saxophone. So I have a lot of solo stuff. And I have a lot of solo Bach. I've done Philip Glass melodies at those church services. I've done Astor Piazzolla tango etudes. There's tons that you can do if you don't want to do the hassle, if you don't want to hassle with the accompaniment. That's option B. Option C is that you could find online accompaniments and do something like that for some of your rep. And then option D would be to do something on the acapella app by yourself. You could even do a Bach fugue, you could do a chorale, you can do any 4-part thing, any 2-part thing, any duo, any concert duo, and then send them that recording of you. I guess I could mention prices if that would help, but typically for a church service, when I do the prelude, offering, featured, big show, and then the postlude, I'll get anywhere from $300 to $500 for that morning hour service. Because you're not going there, in my mind, I'm like, well, if I'm not driving there and I'm just doing it and maybe even selling that same church service to many different churches, you want to work with their budget. So usually that seems to be what most of the churches that I've worked with, and you've heard that I've worked with all of those denominations, that's the average, anywhere from $300 to $500 for that. Again, personal experience. So if that helps you, that's great, because then you know what to kind of start with. I might start on the lower end, but usually let them bring up money just to see what they're comfortable spending. So in addition to streaming concerts at senior centers or through Groupmuse or even at church, you can also just do your own, set them up at your house and stream live from your living room. You should consider making money while you do that, because you put a lot of time into these concerts, so you might as well get something out of it, or, if you're freelancing, then you definitely want to, because you're doing this, for a living. There are several ways to go about accepting donations. In order to accept donations on your YouTube, you do need to be a verified partner, which means you need at least 1,000 subscribers, and you need to have over 4,000 hours of watch time. So that means your account is monetized. And then you would enable super chats, and you could accept through the tip jar. But there are ways around that. You could go through another service. There are several streaming services that allow you to accept donations, such as StreamJar, Stream Elements, Loots.com, Tippy Stream, and Stream Tip. I looked into most of these. Several of them weren't really compatible with YouTube, or they were in a beta version. Stream Elements seemed to be the easiest for me to use. I'm not a very tech savvy person, and I was able to open it up on my Chrome browser, and then it directed me to just downloading the app, because again, I'm just working with mobile devices these days. And you go into the app, under donations, you can choose how you want to accept, if it's credit card or PayPal. It links right up to your PayPal account, and you can set a minimum amount, if you want to accept $1 tips, up to 200, 500, however, whatever you want that max to be. And then it lets you put overlays over your stream so you can see how much you're making if you want that to be out there. Overall, it seemed pretty user-friendly. When you download it, you can sync it to your YouTube, and it just seems the easiest. If any of you have tried it or have experience, let me know. I do have links down there. Let me know what you think. Something that I do every time I move to a new city is that I hit up every local school that I can think of. And I tell my students the same thing. Well, offer to go in and work with the kids at this middle school, that middle school, high school, doesn't matter. When I was first starting out, I would just go there for free to every high school in that city just to start making connections and to start building a private studio, right? That's the goal with going to these schools. I've always told that to my students, and it seems like they have success with that too. Well, nobody's in school, right? They're all in their Zoom classroom. Okay, so what I thought is, how can I take that and modify it? I have so many band director friends who I talk to a lot during the week, and the biggest complaint is this is not working, and I get it, because if I struggle with a one-to-one lesson over Zoom, I can't even imagine what the band directors have to deal with. What if you made a set of instructional videos? It would be like doing a sectional, It would be like working with those kids. So you're getting the music that their band director is working on them with, or whatever. At this point, a lot of people have thrown their arms up. So you can just make something that might last through the summer, because we're getting to the end of the year, and give them just little tips, like a series of short little videos that you package up nicely. You supply them. What I ended up doing was supply the music that I demonstrate in the videos, and then I made some worksheets. I might show that on here. I made some composer worksheets and just little activities that kids would like. And then guess what? Maybe, just maybe, when this is all over, some of those kids might want to keep studying with you, right? And you're helping them in the moment. You're helping your band director friends in the moment, and you might have even planted some seeds for a return on some students. And you're selling these videos, of course, to the schools. And the nice thing is you can kind of repurpose those videos, right? So it's getting the most bang for your buck as the creator. You just have to be smart about this content and what you do with it. The last thing, when I tell my students, or what I used to do when I would go to these schools, I would try to get students and build a private studio. And when I was first starting, I had a lot of students, especially in Arizona. I think I had between 30 and 40. And I had always worked at different locations throughout the valley. And I would drive all around teaching lessons at people's houses and going, I taught at many different after school programs. I was a saxophone instructor, so my afternoons were always really busy, which is why I referenced in one of my earlier videos that you have all day until 3 o'clock. Because if you're just starting out, 3 o'clock is when you really start working, because you start teaching until 3 to 8 p.m. In recent years, I've taught less and less private students. And this year I officially stopped going anywhere for lessons. I stopped working at different schools, and I stopped going to people's houses because it was just time. It's time for now my students to kind of do that. And I know that those kids in general will be in good hands. And I still have students, if you're willing to come to my studio here, I will teach you all day long. Well, you have to know when it's time to step away. There's a lot of, I'm pumping out students here, and they need to go out and they need to be teaching now, And I still love teaching, don't get me wrong. That, of course, but it's covered. I don't feel the need to have to teach everybody anymore. So why I'm saying that is, over the past few years, my numbers have dropped off, and that's okay, because I understand if you're not willing to drive over here, maybe you live in a different city, and I was always driving to you, and of course I understand traffic here is so bad. So I've lost some students, the last year and a half. If you're a private teacher, you know that kids go through phases where they either quit lessons, they don't want to do it anymore, or the parents don't want to drive them anymore. So for whatever reasons, you may have lost students. Well, now's a perfect time to get those students back. So what I noticed a huge increase in my private studio. I have more private students now than I did in January. And the cool thing is, many of them are my old kids that I used to have. I've gotten to reconnect with them because now driving isn't an issue, right? Traffic isn't an issue because it's all online. Now, I've taught online for a very long time, for at least 7 years. When I moved from Arizona to California, I maintained several of my students there. I kept from Arizona, and I would teach them online. So I'm kind of used to that distance learning, so that didn't bother me a whole lot. And So I was able to reconnect with several students, and that's been great for both of us because it's fun to like, see their progress, and it's fun to like, it's like new again, And then one student in particular that I did start when she was in 2nd grade, and now she's in 7th grade. But I left that school several years ago. Really cool to reconnect, and it's been so much fun teaching her again. It's just like no time has passed. I do get really attached to my kids, so that's been probably the most fun part, is being reunited with a lot of past students and like continuing and picking up wherever they are and like taking them further. That's been a lot of fun. For you, what you can do is, if you've experienced a decline in your private studio, now's the perfect time because parents are looking to enroll their kids in something that they can do. And kids are bored because they are stuck at home. And they're going to continue being stuck at home throughout the summer and possibly the fall. So this is an ideal time to start revitalizing your private studio, and that can mean making it more engaging. So what I'm doing with my distance learning kids is that I assign readings so that we can discuss. Because I don't get to see them come into my studio and can see how they're doing face to face, we can talk a little bit the first 10 minutes usually about the readings and just have a little socialization because they're not socializing really. I'm not. Me and my cat are just kicking it. So that breaks it up too. It breaks up the monotony. I also, like I mentioned before, make worksheets, and that gives them some more activity to do and, a little bit of history on the composer, and then we can discuss that. Because the lessons on Zoom or whatever app you're using, it's just not the same. You can't play duets, you can't reach in and like fix their read, and that's really tough. That's really tough. There are some frustrations, but we're making the best of it. So my suggestion, it has always been the same. Go to schools, no matter if you're in a pandemic or not. Recruit students and teach them. None of that has changed. So like this blueprint that I spoke about earlier, when you're starting out, it's really the same. We just have to think a bit more creatively. So I hope some of these tips are helpful and they resonate with you. If they do, please type TGIF thank you in the comments below so that I know that you made it this far into the video. It's definitely been an experience. There was a quote that was circulating on social media during the first few weeks of the pandemic, and I want to share this with you. If you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, your side hustle started, more knowledge, you never lacked time, you lacked discipline. And when I first read that, I'm like, oh my God, you're right. I'm such a loser. Here we're like a week into me not playing the saxophone. People are hoarding toilet paper. There's no cat litter in the store that I normally go to. All of my gigs are being like canceled at the time I thought they were. I thought I had to learn 60 pieces. Now it's like I don't even need to play the instrument. And then I see that quote, and it was like kind of callous. If you don't come out of this quarantine with a new skill, your side hustle started, or more knowledge, you never lacked time, you lacked discipline. So I beat myself up for a little bit over that. And then I thought, up yours? Who are you? I spent my life hustling, and this is like a serious thing that's happening right now. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're watching this video and you're like, Michael, I love you, but I can't even think about playing my instrument or booking a concert right now. I get it, If you're living in New York, if you're living here, I have to edit these videos so often because there's sirens all day. There's a lot going on right now. A lot of people are dying around us, If you're a freelancer and you just can't, I get it. I suggest pursue the unemployment, pursue the that CARES Act should be helpful. I heard some horror stories that like some people are getting $85 a week. I would look into those musician relief funds. I'll put some links down below. There's also some artist relief grants that you could apply for. And just, hang in there. After I was like really angry at that quote, then I started thinking, you know what? Like when I started realizing that I'm in charge here and no one's going to help me but me, I thought, you're right. I need to get my side hustle going. So as horrible as this is, I've been given this gift of time, and how can I use this time? For years, I wanted to start a YouTube channel. For years, I wanted to do educational videos, these kinds of talks, this is what I usually do at our workshops in the summer. I do this at universities during residencies. I talk about music business and entrepreneurship. And there has to be a way to continue doing that. So I thought, okay, let's take it to YouTube. You know, I had like 23 or 33 followers at the beginning of this pandemic. And now I reached over 1,000 last week. And it's promising, and it makes me feel good that you guys are getting value. If you are getting value out of this video, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It helps me out a ton. Also, click that notification so we can be secret friends, as I mentioned last week. Go watch that video from last week if you don't get that joke. I'll put a link to that below too. So I thought, well, I'm the least tech savvy person I know. For years, I've had people in my quartet that I trust, and I give my passwords out to because I'm always locked out of my email. I literally just figured out my YouTube password 3 days ago, but I couldn't figure out how to get into it, so I've been doing all this rigmarole. I don't have a computer, so everything that you're seeing, all of my thumbnails, my video, my editing, the filming, the sound, it's all on my phone. But I'm comfortable with my phone, and the other things always got in the way. The past several years I've wanted to do YouTube videos. I'm like, I don't have a camera, I don't know how to edit, I don't know what software is. I don't even know how to get into my YouTube account. Whenever I uploaded a recording, I would get the recording, I would send it to a student, he would make a thumbnail, that student would send it to a colleague in Arizona, that colleague had my passwords, he would do all of the behind the scenes tagging and upload it to YouTube. And that was the process. So no wonder I'd never had anything uploaded to YouTube because it took so long. For me, as busy as I am booking concerts for everyone around me, whether it's my students, my quartet, myself, managing those performances, plus my own solo things, plus all of my students that I devote a lot of time to, this was like the last thing I thought of devoting any sort of energy to. So in that way, this pandemic has been a huge gift for me. Because I've realized, you know what? I can log into my YouTube account. I can record a video, I can upload a video. We don't know what we're capable of until our backs are against the corner. And I've always been a fighter. I come from a family of fighters, and as long as I've been a freelance musician, I've never wanted to do something like file for unemployment. And that, again, there is no judgment there. That's just part of my DNA. I will go down fighting, and I love a challenge, so I wanted to figure it out. I wanted to figure out, when people told me you couldn't be a freelance saxophonist, I wanted to figure out how. And then when everybody was freaking out saying there's no way to be a freelance musician during this pandemic, I wanted to figure out a way how. And the idea that I'm putting weekly videos up on YouTube, if you don't know me personally, that is hilarious. So, again, I hope this was helpful. Thank you for tuning in if you've tuned in this long. Again, think about subscribing to this channel. Give me some comments below because I'm really trying to make these videos to help you guys. So if you have video ideas that would help you, by the way, I just have to say, last week I received so many beautiful emails from Poland, New Zealand, other states in the country. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I am keeping note of your comments, and I will make videos about those too. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a nice week, and I'll see you next Friday.